Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to our program on Kardec Radio. And now, here's our host, Dr. Vanessa Anceloni.
Welcome, dear listener, to Kardec Radio. Today we are here to talk about Sex and Destiny, which is actually the book by André Luiz through Chico Xavier in the Life in the Spiritual World series, published by Odyssey of America. And you can go to their website to get your own copy and be fascinated about it, because this book actually talks about human sexual relationships, their implications for the future life of the immortal spirit, enabling it to learn by using the library of experience, sex and destiny, love and conscience, freedom and commitment, guilt and redemption, home and reincarnation are the topics of this book, born in the forge of everyday reality. This is exactly what we're going to discuss today, and much, much more. Topics such as adoption, etc. And dear listener, the plus of today's program is that we have two special friends with us. Two Kardec Radio hosts are here in the very studios of Chantilly, Virginia at Kardec Radio. Joyce and Marco Magalhães. They are friends from Toronto, Canada, who are here today to enjoy and also to let us enjoy the very topic we're going to discuss. Thank you so much, Marco and Joyce, for being with us today.
Thank you, Vanessa, for having us one more time here with you. It is an enormous pleasure for us not only to be here, but also be talking about something so important and interesting. This is one of the most amazing books from the series of André Luiz, and it certainly enlightened us in so many different ways regarding human relationships and those relationships with the spiritual world. So it's again, we're so happy to be here.
Thinking about the topic, you can also participate. Even if you're listening to this on demand, remember, you can send your comment and question to kardecradio.com. We have a contact form on our website, and we'll be happy to listen from you and actually reply to your questions. Now, after the break, Joyce, Marco, and I are going to discuss with you, of course, the book Sex and Destiny by André Luiz.
Only today. Throughout your whole life, you will never have another day like today. Remember this, and attend to all good that you can do. Be useful by helping someone. Pay heed to your duties. Happiness and peace, hope and care are what you wish to sow in your path. Joy and favor are gifts that you wish to offer. Relationships that you need to mend, courtesy at home, the most simple and the most demanding work. Review, readjustment, corrections, forgiveness, signs of care and esteem, spiritual support during the work that you embrace and bless. Not one of these things should you delay or leave for later, because time will not return. In a day like today, you only have once.
We will return to our program after these messages.
Getting to the Light, Spiritist Therapy for Discarnate Spirits is a small book that offers guidance to Spiritist practitioners and Spiritist counselors. Purchase your copy at www.ssbaltimore.org.
Nourish your soul with Kardec Radio.
If you missed out on any previous shows, no no worries. We have an on-demand section of all previous shows and interviews. Go to our website at www.kardecradio.com.
Spread the word. Kardec Radio, to learn more about Spiritism.
Help prevent suicide by reading and sharing these books with others. 2 great books are available to help in this Kardec Radio campaign to prevent suicide. Suicide, All You Need to Know, by the international Spiritist speaker Richard Simonetti. You can buy your copy at www.roundtablepublishing-uk.com. Also, Memoirs of a Suicide by the medium Yvonne Pereira. Buy your copy today at www.ediceiofamerica.com.
Kardec Radio, live every Saturday at 11 a.m.
Kardec Radio now offers more programs during the week and weekends. Every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, you can follow the beautiful program God at Home with Francisca Kranz and the British Spiritist community. They will brighten your days by doing a God at Home meeting wherever you are in the world, while teaching you how to do the same in your own home with your family and friends. Every Thursday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, you will hear incredibly inspirational Spiritist talks directly broadcasted by Spiritist Network. There will be true educational moments to carry out to immortality. Every Saturday, live interviews, Bridging Health and Spiritism with the host Dr. Vanessa Anceloni. You may ask questions to the interviewed guests by calling 858-769-4705. And every Sunday, tune in to Spiritist Awareness at Kardec Radio. You will hear a series of segments on a diversity of Spiritist topics. Kardec will broadcast the Spiritist Moment with Kirsten DeMello, the reading of the Spiritist book by John DeRosa and Steve Shepard, Spiritism in Your Life with Drs. Marco and Joyce Magalhães, Spiritism and the Gospel with Luis Sergio Marotta, Spiritist Education for Youth and Children with Bernadette Leal, Spiritist Music with James Marotta, Neuroscience and Spiritism with Dr. Vanessa Anceloni, and many more segments coming soon. Enjoy it all and nourish your soul with Kardec Radio.
And now we return to our program.
Dear listener, we're back, and we're back to talk about sex and destiny. We're going to start our conversation by listening to the preface that the mentor of Chico Xavier, Emmanuel, wrote in 1963 for us. After Marco Magalhães reads this beautiful preface for us, we're going to discuss the very words and go on.
A prayer before starting. Father of infinite goodness, this is a book in which you have allowed our dear André Luiz to use this thrilling account to inform us about some of the concepts of higher spirituality with regards to sex and destiny. It is a verbal photograph of our harsh reality which you have filled with eternal hope. By offering it to our incarnate friends in the world, we want to remember Jesus, the messenger of your unlimited mercy on that sunny day in Jerusalem. In the square, crowded with accusers, some scribes and Pharisees brought him a suffering woman and said that she had been caught sinning. Actually, they were testing him to see what he would do. Master, this woman was caught in adultery. The law says that she is to be stoned. But what do you say? The Master contemplated the zealous followers of Moses at length, and because it would be useless to explain anything to their prejudice-filled minds, he said to them, and to all the moralists of the centuries to come, let him who is without sin cast the first stone. In present times, Jerusalem represents the whole world. In the enormous square of human conventions, and in patent disregard for human dignity, materialism tries hard to do away with moral values. whilst venerable religions fight against nature in a vain attempt to block life, as if they wanted to fool themselves. Due to the tremendous conflict between the gigantic forces that fight for the moral control of earth, you have sent us the Spiritist doctrine in the name of Christ's gospel to reassure souls and tell them that love is the essence of the universe, that all people were born from the divine breath in order to love one another. Sex is a sublime legacy and a home a sanctifying shelter, clarifying, however, that love and sex create natural responsibilities in each person's conscience, and that no one hurts another person in the treasures of love without paying a high price for it. This book is also meant to affirm that if you cannot keep the guilty from suffering the consequences of their wrongs, neither do you allow the defeated to be left without assistance, provided they accept your redemptive light on their path. This book also shows that, with your blessing, the moral delinquents of yesterday, but redeemed today, have become your messengers of redemption for those who fell into the traps of darkness in the past. Therefore, bless this true and hope-filled account, and as we entrust it to our brothers and sisters in the world, may we remind them that physical existence, whether in childhood or youth, in adulthood or old age, is an ineffable gift, which we must always honor, and even if imprisoned within a crawling or shapeless, deformed or infirm body, we must repeat before your immeasurable wisdom. Thank you, dear God. Emmanuel Uberaba, July 4th, 1963.
As we read in this preface, Jesus' passage brought into us once again by Emmanuel. It tells us about a human habit that is very common, judgment, right? And especially when we talk about human relationships, we very often judge, criticize, which becomes a problem when we forget to self-observe, observe our own selves. In the topic of sex, as Emmanuel brings to us, sex is a sublime legacy, and the home a sanctifying shelter, clarifying that love and sex create natural responsibilities in each person's conscience. So this book brings to us the fact that there is no action without a reaction, and that there is actually always the force of creation inside of us that can be used for the benefit of all. And if we don't know how to use it wisely, we are going to reap the consequences. Marco, in the preface by Emmanuel, what does strike the most for you?
I think what strikes me the most is the fact that Emmanuel brings to us the idea that the one who did a lot of mistakes in the past but is now redeemed may be the one that's now trying to help us and others to be a better person. And that's something that we normally forget about, and we try to see life and existence as just a small spot in time. What means that when we see something happening, we don't think about past, we don't think about future. We only measure what we see at that specific time and place. And that's very problematic, because we have to understand that we are eternal beings. And just being eternal means that we've been hanging around for a long time and will be here for another long period of time. And we do a lot of mistakes, all of us did. And we always have a chance to do better. We all have a chance to transform ourselves. And by doing that, we can help so many others. And I think this book brings an enormous example of that. And it actually leads us sometimes to think and judge others in the book, judge some of the characters in the book. And then in the end, we realize that there's much more to the story. And we were forced, actually, to rethink about our own judgment and how we actually understand the story.
It's so interesting, Marco, when we think about free will and sex, because nowadays, as we live our human existence, we observe that once we achieve that level of freedom to choose a partner, to freely exercise our ability to, our sexual abilities, then we are also talking about power. There is a relationship between free will, sex, and power. And many people nowadays on the earth are using their sexual forces mostly to compensate for some lack in their self-esteem, especially in regards to feeling power over other people. What do you think about that?
Well, Vanessa, that's such an important topic. I know we've seen more often and often people abusing their sexual power and or their sexual energy and the capability that we have to use this part of this divine breath that is still present on us in the wrong ways. So free will is we don't have an option. It's within us, and we'll decide at some point to do one thing or another. And unfortunately, what we're seeing now is people using their free will to abuse their sexual energy in order to enforce or compensate other problems into their partners. And that's a big problem because of that, we're seeing families being disrupted. We've seen relationships falling apart and a reap of consequences in multiple other people. Not only that, like nuclei of friends and families and spirits, a family of spiritual families that are incarnated together, as we see in this book, that they have to deal with many aspects of their relationships, and because we are still abusing the possibilities we have, especially related to our sexual energies and the creative power we have with the sexual energies, we see these dramatic consequences in relationships in the world.
We are going to give a short break, but when we come back from the break, we are going to discuss the very preface of the book written by André Luiz through the medium Valdo Vieira after this break.
We will return to our program after these messages.
Books of André Luiz. Through the hands of the most prolific medium of all times, Chico Xavier, the spirit doctor André Luiz wrote a series of books that unveil the mechanisms of life and life after life. From the best-selling novel No Solar, Our Home, to And Life Goes On, the reader will find illumination for a fulfilled life on Earth as well as immortal happiness. Check the many titles available at the international distributor, EDI CEI of America. Their website is www.ediceiofamerica.com.
Spread the word. Kardec Radio, to learn more about Spiritism.
Spiritist Network, your gateway to on-demand Spiritist videos. www.spiritistnetwork.com.
Nourish your soul with Kardec Radio. Traveling to another country? Immigrating elsewhere? Prepare yourself by reading the book Among Brothers of Other Lands, in which several loving and wise spirits wrote through the hands of Chico Xavier and Waldo Vieira, telling all of us the tips and hints of a successful transition to a new land. Buy your copy today at www.ediceiofamerica.com.
Do you want Spiritist books for your children? At Edicei of America, you'll find a collection of them, from the best-selling book Our Father, in which the Spirit Mei Mei, through Chico Xavier, brought countless poems, stories, and folk tales based on the Lord's Prayer, to the beautiful and educational collection by the author Edailson Salles on Back to School and many others. Buy your copy today at www.ediceiofamerica.com.
And now we return to our program.
Now, we are back here to discuss the very book, Sex and Destiny. Very peculiar, because this book was actually written by the spirit author André Luiz through two different mediums, Chico Xavier and Valdo Vieira. In 1963, this book was brought to us through two mediums. Part 1 was written by Valdo Vieira, Part 2 by Chico Xavier. Same spirit. If you analyze the language, you're going to find that there is no difference whatsoever. The filtering of the mediums were so perfect that it actually filtered nothing, because you can find no different style whatsoever from one part to another. Marco, this is really mind-blowing, something that is quite difficult sometimes to comprehend, and something that is probably very unique on the earth, because we don't have any account to date of such a phenomenon, and I would rather use that word because it's really something that is yet to be understood. Don't you think so?
Well, I certainly agree with that. It is indeed mind-blowing to try to comprehend the mechanism behind the completion of this book, and especially because we're looking at two extraordinary mediums working together at that point to bring together such a complex idea sometimes, and knowledge that was not even available around us, with a depth of understanding of topics that was beyond the reach of most of us who were living in 1963, and doing that with a seamless, perfect collaboration to a point that as a reader you cannot tell. You cannot tell any difference. If I was not told that, I would say, well, I don't understand, and I can't see that happening. So I think this is really like a phenomenal for all of us, and also support the basic principle of the mediumistic communication, where the source idea and knowledge is coming from one source and is just being translated by two hands, and we can attest that by works like this one.
You know what's interesting also, Marco, that as we mentioned the date, 1963, you realize that the content of this book is really revolutionary, because in 1963, especially in Brazil, but around the world, it's precisely the time in which humanity was going through the very revolution of freedom in regards to sex in itself, right? You see how Spiritism really brings great awareness to even prevent us from falling into old habits. When you open the doors of freedom of sex, comes the very book, Sex and Destiny, to give us some guidance and make sure that it prevents us from falling into the traps of this freedom that comes with consequences. Don't you think so?
You're absolutely right, Vanessa. Understanding that sex in this title of this book doesn't necessarily represent the only like a sexual relationship, but rather a whole gamut of things related to our sexual energies, and how making decisions with that capability will affect our destiny. And actually taking control of your own decisions was actually something that was happening around the world at that time. Remember that in many of the countries around that time were going through military government and coups of governments happening in many different places because of different political orientations. And I'm not even considering other sexist ideas that were hovering around that time, that were being challenged by many minorities. And in minorities now, I actually include majority of people, but they were still considered minorities at that time. So it is really like a turmoil of things happening, and the book certainly brings us the understanding of that our decisions regarding our capabilities, our sexual and creative energies, and how we use that in relationships will affect not only us, but certainly many others.
We will return to our program after these messages. Want to learn more about the ins and outs of mediumship? The book In the Realms of Mediumship by the spirit doctor Andre Luiz through the medium Chico Xavier analyzes the various aspects of mediumistic communication and mediumship. He also praises the efforts of mediums who are faithful to the spiritual mandate they received before they reincarnated, warning them about the risks of badly practiced exchanges between the two worlds. Buy your copy today at www.ediceiofamerica.com.
The Spiritist Magazine is a trimestral, digital periodical that publishes the latest news on the Spiritist thought and the movement in the USA and worldwide at www.spiritistmagazine.com.
Spread the word. Kardec Radio, to learn more about Spiritism.
Study Spiritism online at eSpiritism. eSpiritism is an online tool to promote the study and practice of Spiritism while contributing to the preparation of Spiritist practitioners. For full access to courses, go to www.e-spiritism.org.
If you missed out on any previous shows, no worries. We have an on-demand section of all previous shows and interviews. Go to our website at www.kardecradio.com.
Emmanuel's Novels. The reputable mentor, Emmanuel, wrote a 5-book series of Spiritist novels that can truly transform your life. Starting with 2,000 Years Ago, Emmanuel delights our minds with the true account of characters that are so similar to each of us. Discover yourself in Emmanuel's novels and live better. Buy your copy today at www.ediceiofamerica.com. And now we return to our program.
We are back, dear listener, and we're back to talk about sex and destiny. Think about it in your life. Sex and destiny, we have freedom, but we also reap the consequences of such freedom. And in this book, we're going to talk about the story of two families. True life story of two families mainly. Two families that live the love, romance, cheating, lies, death, and redemption. But it's not a story of one single life, because this book surprisingly talks about lives that are bringing to us consequences and also future sowing as well. Marina and Marita, sisters. We have the family, Claudio, his wife, and on the other family we have Nemésio, his wife Beatriz, and their son. In this story, we're going to learn not only about love, marriage, etc., but we're also going to learn about habits of our daily lives, for example, drinking alcohol. In chapter 8, we're going to learn that whenever we're doing anything, we have spiritual company as well, because the spirits are majority on the earth. And in this very, very chapter, we have the following passage, and now we read to you before we discuss. Claudio entered in the room, but he was not alone. One of the two discarnate spirits who had modified his personality, the first one that had induced Claudio to drink the whiskey, was actually entwined around his body. The word entwined in human language seems to be the one that best describes the example of shared possession we are studying, although it does not explain very accurately the entire process of fluidic envelopment. And we use the term shared possession because actually one individual has exactly the same burning, dishonest objectives as the other, thus euphorically completing one another, diving responsibly into equal shares. Marco, I find this so fascinating because we are learning here in this book, as every book by André Luiz, to live a life with open eyes, that whatever we're doing here, we are attracting a spiritual reality as well. And that can be wonderful if our thoughts are beautiful, but can be very detrimental if our thoughts, habits, words are actually not very uplifting. Marco, how striking is it that they show to us that the alcohol behavior by Claudio can be very damaging, not only for him, but the family life.
Well, it is an eye-opener for sure. Just to one more time show us that we're not alone. And just as we get together in the incarnate world, because we have similar ideas, thoughts, and actions, same thing happens in the spiritual world, and the same thing happens between the incarnate and the discarnate world. If we share the same ideas and if we have the same intentions, we will hang together. Unfortunately, that goes both to the good things and to the bad things. So in this case, Claudio is not only drinking alcohol, but he's sharing that experience with the obsessor spirit. Now, not only that, we have also to understand that in many other aspects of our lives, we will be doing the same. And if we don't live the righteous life, as Jesus explained to us in the Gospels, as Allan Kardec described to us in the Medium's book, the relationships between the physical world and the spiritual world, and if we don't understand that our thoughts are a type of energy that communicates and generates strong links with other minds and other thoughts, then we won't succeed. So we have to understand all that in the package, and that's what André Luiz is bringing to us, a package of information that, well, yes, we're not alone. Yes, we have to live a righteous life. Yes, we have to watch our thoughts because they're energy. They attract, they connect, they create. Your thoughts are alive, and they will certainly be shared by many others, depending on what you're thinking at that time.
And you know, when you talk about this package, Marco, another passage brings to us something that can be very eye-opening in our daily lives. When Beatriz is at the hospital, she is suffering from a very difficult illness. Her husband is in the waiting room with his secretary that actually became his affair, Marina. And in the spiritual realm, André Luiz and Pedro Neves, who is the father of the patient, Beatriz, are watching the couple, and I quote-unquote couple, meaning Nemésio and his secretary who became his affair. They are in the waiting room exchanging, kisses, etc. And when they are doing that, Pedro Neves is indignated, as well as André Luiz. They cannot believe their eyes, and suddenly Brother Felix, who is a higher spirit mentor of the family, appears. And the description of André Luiz is striking because he says that by the minute he appeared in the room, this elevated mind had such compassion towards the couple that he emitted so much love that made them awake from what they were doing and they realized they had to take care of the patient. They broke apart just for a moment there and went back to their own realities, teaching us about the importance of not judging. And he says, when we were judging, we were actually pushing the couple vibratorily to continue doing what they were doing. And we think we're doing nothing when we're judging. And here we are taking part on the wrongdoing just by judging others who are doing wrong. Isn't that mind-blowing?
That is certainly very interesting, and it's a good teaching for all of us, including Andrea Luiz, because in that chapter, he will describe to us how he felt, and describe to us that, yes, it was a good lesson for him too, because he realized that by his mental energy at that time, he was contributing, and he was contributing to that act, and he understood that afterwards by the explanation of Brother Felix. Now, bringing that information to our own lives, how many times we do that during the day? And we're not thinking about the type of judgment that we're discussing other people's life and talking about them, but we're thinking about it. And that's what's more striking about this, because Andrea Luiz was not discussing the case at that point. He was simply thinking about it. He was judging by using his thoughts and mental energy, just like we do all the time. And like we do all the time, we think about other people, we judge, we comment on things, and every time we do that, we are sending out a type of vibratory signal in our thoughts that's extremely harmful in both ends, not only for the person who's receiving it, but also for us. We are actually emitting hazardous energies around us, and that's not good. That's certainly not good. So I think it's a good learning for us to watch our thoughts.
Marco, there is also another passage that for me becomes very, very important, which is the passage in which the sisters, Marina and Marita, they're actually dating the same guy without knowing. Actually, Marita doesn't know. Marina knows. And when Marita gets to know, of course, she is distraught and tries to take her life. She doesn't succeed, and now she's in the hospital and in a coma after actually an accident. And her father is there, Claudio. The spirit that accompanies her father, Moreira, drinks with him, etc., is there as well. And the Marita is in coma. Interesting enough, Andrea Luiz describes to us that she is, though in coma, she as a spirit is thinking. She's very upset. She's very angry towards her sister because of the fact that she actually almost like stole her fiancé, her future fiancé, and she's emitting those thoughts of indignation, of hatred, etc. And the spirit who is in the room, Moreira, her father's friend, companion of pleasures, let's say this way, drinking, sex, etc. He listens to her. He likes her too. And he takes her side. What does he do next? He decides to avenge Marita. She doesn't even know that he is there. He simply takes her side and decides to avenge her. So what does he do? He goes to her sister, Marina, and starts inflicting guilt on her, whispering words that are guilty loaded, to the point that this guilt really makes her crash, meaning she has a psychiatric crisis and she goes to the psychiatric hospital, Now she is there, and his plan is really to break her down, allowing her not to function properly, so she's going to pay for what she did for her, to her sister. Marco, when I think about this, I think, man, how many such cases we have in this life. How many problems we have that exist exactly in a family, and not necessarily in our families regarding the incarnates, but the discarnate companions that play a huge role in our relationships. They take sides. I remember, Marco, when Allan Kardec in the Spirit's book, actually, he asked this very question to the spirits. What are the spirits that usually are with us? And they reply, 4 types, the guardian angels, who are always more elevated, always protective, guiding. 2, family spirits. They can be more elevated, but they can be also less elevated. The thing is that they like us. And sometimes if they don't like somebody who hurts us, they're going to take sides. They're not elevated. They are really going to put that person down. And then 3, we have the ones who are with us by affinity. Not necessarily they love us, they like us, but they like what we do. They do what we like as well. And they are there with us. If we like soccer, they like soccer. If we like books, they like books. If we like traveling, they like traveling. I'm just saying out of my mind things that we may like, they may like it too. So they vary according to our own evolution. And the number 4th type of spirit that is always with us are spirits who don't like us. We call them obsessors, but they are actually spirits who temporarily are on another page. They don't agree with us. They actually disagree quite a bit, and they want to put us down. In this case, we are talking about a spirit who likes one sister, but disliked and actually took the side of that sister and is now avenging the other one. How many problems, Marco, I keep thinking, in families today may be due to the very process that Andrea Luiz is describing to us?
Well, Vanessa, I don't think I can come up with a complete list of the problems, because I simply think there are so many things related to that same idea and same process. And just to keep it short, I think if you think about relationship within a family, as you mentioned, there are so many other spirits involved in your family, that discarnate, incarnate, all living together, all with different type of connections between them. And every time you project a thought around you, certainly that will have a consequence, and certainly someone with the same affinity of thoughts will end up taking sides of it. And as we see here in the story on Sex and Destiny, she's ended up being placed in a psychiatric hospital. But not only that, like, this is more like one of the most dramatic things. But what about in our daily lives when we have a bad day, and all of a sudden, we don't know what's happening, and we're sending this very negative thoughts about many people around us, and all of a sudden everyone's having a bad day because we're just projecting collectively, we're just projecting the same type of energy around everyone around us. And unfortunately, these friends that are still in this temporary lapse of judgment will take advantage of that and ended up creating much more complications. So we can think about disease processes. We can think about broken relationships. We can think about addictions, and there's so many other things. So I think it's very complex, and the book brings us a very interesting view of these processes. And so, but I think the question is, what are we going to do then? Because of course we know that's the mechanism, but a lot of people will say, people tell me I should love everyone, love one another, but they don't realize that just by thinking good things about other people, you're already loving them quite a lot, actually. Just by not thinking bad things about people, you're already doing a lot. So I think what Andrea Luiz is trying to call us into action is actually, you know what? Let's think positively. Let's not judge. Let's not project evil thoughts. Let's just starting by praying and projecting good thoughts for everyone.
So, Mark, we're going to go for one last break, and when we come back, the ultimate question about the book after the break.
We will return to our program after these messages.
New release, Liberation. In this compelling narrative, André Luiz emphasizes the work of high-order spirits in the effort to convert the spirit Gregorio to the good, an effort that culminates with the unforgettable re-encounter with his mother, herself a highly evolved spirit, wherein he surrenders to the irresistible call of love. The book also contains information on how unhappy spirits act as they try to involve incarnates in their wiles. The spirit author tells of the intercession of high-order spirits on behalf of human beings, demonstrating the divine compassion that grants to all the blessed opportunity to free themselves by means of study, labor, and persevering service in the practice of the good. Buy your copy today at www.ediceiofamerica.com.
Spread the word. Kardec Radio, to learn more about Spiritism.
Want Spiritist books for your children? At Edicei of America, you will find a collection of them. From the best-selling book, Our Father, in which the Spirit Mei through Chico Xavier brought countless poems, stories, and folk tales based on the Lord's Prayer, to the beautiful and educational collection by the author Adelson Sales on Back to School and many others. Buy your copy today at www.ediceiofamerica.com.
Nourish your soul with Kardec Radio.
If you missed out on previous shows, no worries. We have an on-demand sections of all previous shows and interviews. Go to our website, www.kardecradio.com.
Nourish your soul with Kardec Radio.
Spiritism for Everyone is the live web study meeting and educational program of the United States Spiritist Council. This year, in commemoration of the 150th anniversary of the Gospel according to Spiritism, the Spiritism for Everyone program will present an in-depth study of this remarkable book. Join us every Wednesday evening through the web from any computer or mobile device, no matter where you are in the U.S. Spiritism for Everyone is free, open to all, and requires no registration. For more information, go to www.spiritist.us.
And now we return to our program.
We are back in our final moments discussing the very book, Sex and Destiny, a true life story written by the Spirit André Luiz through two mediums, Chico Xavier and Valdo Vieira, in 1963. But the book is so up to date with everyday life nowadays that you'll be amazed. And this book is about two families, stories of love, hatred, romance, accident, adoption, sex, and lots other contents regarding our sexual force. Marco, when we discuss this, inevitably we talk about consequences, and the afterlife is all about showing to us what we have done in this life. And in chapter 5 of second part, André Luiz describes to us, actually chapter 9 of the second part, André Luiz describes to us something that is really fascinating. An institute in the spiritual realm named Almas Irmãs that is specifically put together to help people who need to deal with their difficulties regarding their sexual life and the creation force inside of all of us. And what the mentor describes to André Luiz is that in this institute, they had an oscillating population of 5,000 to 6,000 souls, in which out of 100 students, 18 were victorious regarding their reincarnation commitments, 22 had grown spiritually, 26 had barely grown, and 34 had acquired even worse debts. So here we have, as he says, lessons for people to learn about courses. Can you believe they have specialized courses there? Sex and love, sex and marriage, sex and motherhood, sex and sexual urges, sex and balance, sex and medicine, sex and spiritual growth, sex and the law, and other categories. And it's fascinating to know that we can learn so much in the spiritual realm and sometimes make plans to come back, make amends, progress. And some of us, when we go back, we are not worse per se, but we have more debts than when we reincarnated at first. So this institute is here to open our minds to so many important things. What do you think, Marco, in that regard?
Well, Vanessa, I think it's a good and a bad sign. I would say the good sign is that, of course, help is always available for us, and that's why Jesus, our Master, always helping us, always sending us loving energies. Although we sometimes close the doors for them, they're always there. And there's a dedicated group of spirits that are there for us all the time. The bad sign of it is that there's so many of us still stuck into the deviations of our sexual energies, because sex in reality is a divine attribute. And I think this is one of the most striking messages, especially in this book itself, but in this chapter, that Brother Felix, which is actually the coordinator, director of this institute, and it's important for you to remember this because the ending of the book is quite surprising in that aspect. He's the coordinator director of the institute, and he teaches us quite some amazing information about sex as a divine attribute that we have to use well. So if you look at the numbers, it is, again, striking to see how prevalent, if you think about numbers in disease demographics, how prevalent disturbances of sexual energies are still in our planet. And how difficult it is for lots of us as spirits control these urges and these disturbances and start to improve. And also shows us that it is actually one of the most prevalent type of mechanism of obsession is actually the misuse of our sexual energies. So, as I explained, there's good aspects about this information, some not so good ones for us. If you think that we have so much to learn still, but at the same time, we have so many people to help us.
So here's a teaser for you. As Marco said, what is the end of the story? Who is actually Brother X, the mentor of the families? Who was he in a previous life? In this very institute that we were talking about, they have work such as regression therapy and regression surgery in a way, and the reorganization of our minds in so many ways. What happens at the end is going to be for you to identify. Just go to the website of EdiseiofAmerica.com and get your own copy. And then, of course, tell us what you thought. Do you believe the possibility of what actually André Luiz describes to us, because he's just reporting a true account? This and much more in the book Sex and Destiny. We now are going to invite you for our final moments, our prayer. Let us now open our eyes and express our gratitude to God. Dear Mother, Father God, thank you for the blessings and the gift of freedom, especially for the opportunity to heal our souls through another reincarnation. We pray at this very moment with you for those who are in greater need than ourselves, and especially who are in need of transformation, of strength, of new hope. We thank you also for the opportunity of bringing these teachings to our lives that are very life-changing. May we become ever more responsible and never lose sight of what we are and how we can progress to help you in your creation. And so be it. Thank you, dear listener. We hope you have a blessed week. And Marco Magalhães has also his final goodbye to you.
So thank you, Vanessa, for having us, and thank you all for listening. And I think let us keep in mind the message from André Luiz all the time. Live a righteous life, think good of others, and do your best to improve yourself. Thank you.
Thank you, Marco. Many blessings, dear listener.
Thank you for listening to Kardec Radio, broadcasting live every Saturday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Email us and share your comments at www.kardecradio.com. Until next time, we wish you many blessings.